Thanks to our guest, Debraj Ghoshal, faculty, students, and participants. Today, we have one of the most important things to grasp for any business enthusiast, especially those aspiring for an international career. You have come to the right place to learn about trends in international business. I am Shrikar Vamsi, completed my graduation in Electrical and Electronics Engineering from Amrita School of Engineering, Bangalore. Post graduation, I worked as a marketing executive in an authorized service dealer company for 17 months. I'll be going for Masters in International Business course at ISEG School of Management, Paris campus. Now, our beloved speaker, Dr. Debraj Ghoshal, Associate Program Head for GMP at SPJMR. He is one of our favorites and he is well known for his extensive expertise and vast industrial experience from some of the India's most renowned industrial conglomerates including Mahindra and Mahindra, Tata and Reliance. Total work experience of 23 years, out of which 13 years is his experience in industry. His curiosity for international business led him to work across India and outside in China, in Shanghai, and in Beijing. And he has traveled extensively in Asia, Europe, and United States, Latin America, and Africa. Currently, he is a full-time faculty member at SPJMR for International Business and Strategy. Having a PhD in International Business Strategy and MBA in Marketing and Bachelor's in Chemical Engineering. He is also our co-chairperson of International Relations at SPJMR. I would like Dr. Debraj sir to take over the session. Thank you.
See, unmute.
Thank you very much, Shikhar, for the kind introduction. And good to see some of my old students also in the group. So welcome to all of you. And we will keep this session very, very interactive. And I will try to use minimum slides and also take your questions as you ask me. So if you look at this entire gamut of international business, when we talk about international business, people generally think about exporting products. But international business is much beyond that. And we have to look at aspects of global financing. We have to look at sourcing raw material globally. We have to look at even talent, recruiting talent globally, looking at manufacturing, not just in India, but in different parts of the world. We are talking about the global value chains, where you make different parts in different parts of the world and then assemble in one part of the world, do R&D in another part of the world. Again, in terms of even research. So it's no longer about doing research in the US or Europe only, but also in Bangalore, also in different parts of the world. It's also all about lots of international joint ventures. It's about global merger acquisitions. Every other day we hear about some of the other company buying out other companies. So all of this are different aspects of international business. Use my slide. So we are talking about some of these trends in international business. And as I said, number one, we talked about the dimensions of international business. And it's just not about products, but also about lots of flows. When we talk of international business, it is a flow of goods, of services, all the software exports, what India does, all the tourism, what happens, increasingly data flows, where data sees no boundaries, all the OTT platforms what are streamed across the world, finance flows, which is traditionally very, very strong area. And of course, people flows, migration of people from one country to the other, the international tourists, the international students. So all of this constitute international business. And as we speak, a lot of people ask questions about what's happening with COVID. Has COVID sort of disrupted international business or has it enhanced international business? So there is no clear answer. So if you have to look at, you have to look at disaggregated manner. You have to look at some of the flows have actually exponentially gone up, especially the data flows. With all of us locked up with work from home, the data flows have just skyrocketed. And because of which we see huge demand in the software and digital space. If you look at flows of capital, which was traditionally FII or FDI flows, which are not going to large extent. But what has increased is international venture capital funding. All the startups which are getting funding. And if you look at India itself, more than 32, 33 unicorns formed in this year itself. And who is funding them? Where is the funding coming from them? It is not coming from Indian banks or, mostly from India. It is mostly global capital. A lot of the American venture capital firms, a lot of other venture capital firms are funding some of these startups. So capital flows is increasingly important. Again, if you look at this year, 2021, in the first half of the year itself, India's exports have grown by 50%. People are talking about death of globalization. But just look at our own country. And last year, we did about 290 billion of exports of products. And this year, we are likely to do 400 billion. So more the exports, more the jobs, more the opportunities in this space possible. And it's not just India-driven phenomenon. Also huge, because of the huge amount of trade flows happening across the world, there are also some challenges. The freight rates across the world have just skyrocketed because of mismatch of demand supply of the containers, because of bottlenecks in the supply chain. Of course, the demand has also increased. So all of these reasons are leading to huge increase in the freight rates. Again, if you look at India's this $400 billion exports which we're expecting, so that is only the product part. And top of that, we have also service exports, predominantly our software exports, also the other types of services exports. So those are again huge opportunities. And if you look at how do we define all of this? So we can say different aspects about flows. But there is a very unique global sort of database called the DHL Global Connectedness Index. So this every 2 years, DHL along with Professor Pankaj Ghemawat, they compile the data across the world. And rather than talking qualitatively whether international flows have gone up or down, the DHL Connectedness Index gives a very good sort of data-driven analysis. And this index looks at different types of flows. The flows of trade, which is the products and services, of capital, the different types of capital, FDI, FII flows, information flows and data flows. Whole lot of different types of data flows, the people flows, flows in terms of the tourists, the international students, the migrants. All of this lead to different types of flows. And if you look at the graphs here, so this is still 2018 data. So let me show you the latest 2020 data. And if you look at some of the flows have really dropped, like people flows. Because of the coronavirus, the borders were closed. And then in 2020, the people flows drastically reduced. But with again borders opening up, again the flows have started coming back. But if you look at the data flows, the information flow, this is something which has been growing up and up year on year, and 2021 it will further go up. Again, if you look at the good flows, the services flows, they are pretty much flat. But because of the rise in commodity prices, because of you look at the crude oil prices, you look at every commodity, the prices have gone up. So although the volumes of trade have not increased to that extent, the value have increased to large extent. Yeah. So this gives a very good way of looking at data with more details. And again, if you look at the global DHL Global Connectedness Index, they also rank countries. Which are the countries which are maximum sort of connected together? And if you look at some of the countries which are highly connected, mostly countries in Europe, because of the European Union, the trade blocs play a very important role. Also, there are countries like Singapore, which are small port-driven, or Dubai, which are also highly connected because they are big trading hubs, and through them a lot of the trade passes through. So those are very important aspects of the trade. Another aspect which we want to talk about is all these trade blocks. Yeah, and if you have any questions in between, you can put on the chat, and I'm happy to take them. Again, if you look at the different types of trade blocks, so we have the traditional trade blocks, the European Union, the North Atlantic, NAFTA, which is now called USMCA. But there are many more which are now work in progress and which are, going to sort of change the entire, ecosystem in the world in terms of groups. And if you look at some of those groups, the one which is, closer home is something called RCEP, which is a big group in the Asia Pacific region, where many countries in Asia are trying to come together. And there are 15 countries in that bloc who are trying to come together. And India was part of that group, but we have recently left that group. So from 16 members, now RCEP has become 15-member group. Also, there are others, like, there is a one which is talking about TTIP, Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership, which is connecting both the North American bloc as well as the European Union. This is something work in progress. And if it happens, that will be a big, big aspect. Then there are also, another group which is called the CPTPP, which is a group again of countries across the Pacific, where US was a founding member, but it left. So now it has become 11 members. But now new countries are wanting to join them. UK is also wanting to join the CPTPP. Even China is thinking of joining this group. Again, in Africa also there are big groups being planned, and one of them is called the Tripartite Free Trade Agreement. 26 countries in Africa coming together. So, in spite of a lot of talk about nationalism and countries going alone, a lot of these trade blocs are under discussion, and some of them are also getting signed. Vietnam is a country which has recently signed a trade deal with European Union. Japan has signed a number of trade deals. And then beyond the trade partnerships, there are also some of the geopolitical groups. Because of the rise of China and the conflict of China with the US, there are now this different groups coming up to sort of contain China. And the Quad, which has come up with US, India, Japan, and Australia. So it is a bloc where they're saying we will cooperate on vaccination, we'll cooperate on looking at some military aspects, we'll look at some of the naval exercises together. And just 3 days back, when our foreign minister Jaishankar went to Israel, Israel is a very, very important partner of India in terms of defense supply. So there they're talking about Israel, US, India, and UAE coming together and forming a Quad 2, which is again a historic, because the Arab world and Israel were enemies. But now UAE and Israel is coming together along with India and the US to play a very, very important role in West Asia and Central Asia. So these are again very, very interesting times in terms of geopolitics. So we see a lot of headlines on geopolitics about conflict between countries, but the real business numbers don't actually reflect that. The shipments of China and the US, the trade has actually ballooned in the last 2 years, in spite of having all those trade adverse relations. Again, you look at India and China, we have border issues. But in the first few months, the trade between India and China has gone up to $90 billion. It has actually increased. Although there is a huge deficit, so it's not a balanced part of it. So geopolitics is happening in one direction, but businesses are moving in another direction. But in spite of all of those, the people who are managing those businesses have to be much more aware of everything what is happening across the world. And let me come to something which is more generic, because this is a very diverse group what we have. So we would talk a little bit about so what will make the prospective international business manager more successful, because the opportunities are there. Global trade is growing. MNCs are coming up. A lot of new startups are coming up, and the startups are getting huge funding. Now, when they're getting the funding and the business model is proven in one country, the startups are also wanting to go global. So they are also recruiting people who are in international businesses. Also, the global finances are coming in. So if you want tomorrow to have a career in international business, what are those sort of qualities which you are required? And number one aspect is about understanding the culture of different countries. So now you could learn about culture of different countries by studying with professors like us. But the best way to learn culture is to experience the culture. And how do you experience the culture? Traditionally, people can go as tourists, or most of the education institution exchange programs, they go for a few weeks. But even better than that, you study abroad. You sort of, spend a few years in your formative years in another country, and you have classmates who are from different countries. You experience the culture and you know the nuances. So, that gives you a head start globally, because any company in the world today is a global company. And they require global managers who understand culture of various countries. And studying in different countries gives you one of those perspectives. Also, there is this entire aspect about the global mindset. So even when you are in India, how can you cultivate the global mindset? In India itself, we are very diverse. So can you, make relationship, friends, if you're from North India, from South India, so in India itself, you can start embracing the global mindset. And once you go out, that again helps. So let me ask you, what are some of the India's biggest exports, or, things which have exported and which have made a huge impact in the world? So which are India's biggest exports? IT services, KK is talking, of course, that is one of the major ones in terms of software, what we do. What else? Human resources. That's very interesting. Yeah. So the biggest impact what India has is, in terms of many of the people who have, gone abroad, and the Indian immigrants are one of the highest in millions, and India received the highest remittances in the world. So all the Indians, nurses or laborers working in Middle East, to the white collar workers working in the US and Europe, and they're sending back money to India. So that's a big aspect. And also many of these people who have gone abroad, they are now CEOs of who's who, the Fortune 500 companies. They are professors of the top universities deans of the top universities in the world. So there's a huge impact. So the talent of India is something, which is big export. But again, as some of you are saying, gems and jewelry is one of the big aspects. Even petroleum products. Yeah. We import crude oil, but petrol, diesel are some of our biggest exports. Also, you look at pharma products, generic drugs. That is something, again, which is a big area of exports. And if you look at the government, how is the government incentivizing international business in India? By PLI scheme, productivity linked incentives, where they are sort of shortlisted initially 3 sectors, now plus 10 more sectors, and where government is trying to incentivize India to manufacture not for India, but also for the world. And similar schemes are also there in many other countries. So that is, another aspect of global carriers. And the next aspect is, how do you, develop this, global mindset or knowledge about different cultures? So some of the easy things to do is about, if you see the movies of different countries. So before you go to work in some countries, start seeing movies of those countries, and that will give you some understanding about the culture of that country. And if you look at these days, countries are not just competing on, how much export or import they have, what type of armies do they have, but also on a soft power. So countries are competing on soft power. And if you look at countries like South Korea today, they are one of the biggest cultural exporters. They are exporting K-pop, Gangnam Style, or a lot of those, animation. India is exporting yoga. Yeah. So those are, yes, BTS Anand. Yeah. So that's a famous band from South Korea. Yeah. So those are again, huge, exports. So even if you are a creative person and, you still want to pursue a career in international business, it's possible. You look at sports. What is IPL? IPL is nothing but international business. You have, players from different countries playing together in different destinations, sometimes in India, sometimes in, Dubai, sometimes in South Africa, coaches from different countries. You look at soccer. So more countries play, in the Olympics than they are members of the United Nations. So all of these are, different aspects of, international business. Again, in terms of, so are there any questions in the chat specifically? I saw somebody putting something. So So question from KK has put something. Another paradigm that exists in this space is the embargo, sanctions, etc. They impact international trade, business in their own. Absolutely, KK. So if you look at, there are different drivers of, internationalization, and also there are pressures for, not allowing globalization. And there is, of course, a tendency of protectionism in many countries because they want to protect their local jobs, and countries are going to trade wars. Also, there are sometimes, even data protection laws, data localization laws. So the digital globalization, which was booming, that also is facing some sort of headwinds because many countries are enacting laws of data localization, about data privacy. But still, those things are data-driven businesses are still growing. And if you look at the valuation of those companies, they're skyrocketing. Means the market believes that, all those protectionism measures will not hurt. And again, the biggest, proof that we are a connected world is the entire COVID. In the old days, it would have happened in one country and stopped. But a disease came from one country and spread to many, many countries in the world. And now the way the humanity is also fighting the COVID, developing the vaccine is also international collaboration. Companies from multiple countries coming together, developing the vaccine, some other countries manufacturing those vaccines, some other countries funding those vaccines. Yeah. So there is a whole display of, both collaboration internationally. Also, there are risks to international business. Risks related to the finance, the foreign exchange currencies, the geopolitical tensions, risks related to, non-payment. So a whole lot of risks are there in international business. And when we teach in our global management program, international business course, or in other programs, we cover many of those aspects. And any other questions from the group? Anybody would like to ask any questions? Maybe I can take some of the questions you already sent to me. So let me read out some of the questions you sent to me. How do you see, Professor, influence of China over the current rise in price of shipping containers as well as imported coal? So this was the question from one of the participants. Of course, China is one of the big consumers in the world. It is today the number 2 economy in the world. And it was relatively less affected by the COVID, although COVID started there, but they recovered very fast. So their economy has ramped up, their production has ramped up, and because of which they are buying in a lot of raw material, coal and other aspects, as well as they're exporting a lot. The freight rates from some of the ports in China to the US have not gone up by some percentage, but they've gone up by 3 times, 5 times, 7 times. So those are, having ripple effects of global commodity prices going up. Plus added complexion on the coal is, China used to import a lot from Australia. But because of the geopolitical reasons between Australia and China, those imports have reduced. And because of which, imports from other countries have gone up. And India used to also import a lot of coal. And we are recently hearing about some coal shortages in India also. So we are very, very interconnected world. Our politicians may say, we are, trying to shut off our economy or protect each other. But economy has, intertwined in such a way that nobody can stop that, process. And something happens in one part of the world affects other parts of the world. Earlier days, we used to only follow elections in India. But today you have to follow, elections in the US, elections. Recently, German elections happened. Yeah. Angela Merkel retired, and a new party has, gone the majority. A new coalition is coming up. Now, the leadership in Germany will have, huge implications on Germany's relation with Russia, with China, with, European Union leadership. So whatever happens in one corner of the world is affecting other corners of the world. And that is, important for you to understand. Many of you are future of India and the world. And the courses like this or studying in different parts of the world gives you that perspective. That how do you handle, knowledge about different countries and stuff like that. Anybody else wants to ask something? I see KK has put something.
Another question, it says, anything in terms of emerging trends, things that are not well documented for research yet, but beginning to emerge. Anything that may happen in the next 3 to 5 years as trends with global impact?
Yeah. So KK, that's a very broad question. But if you look at, specific to international business, one aspect is just, the financing part. Traditionally, we used to have the traditional, methods of finance, the FII money, FDI money. So those are there. But now there's a huge rise of sovereign wealth funds. There are huge rise of venture capital funds, which are all global. Also, the Bitcoin phenomenon. Bitcoin belongs to no RBI or no central bank. This is a global currency, which is flowing across the world. In some parts, it's still illegal. Some parts, it is, becoming a legal currency. So currency is, one area where, a lot of things are happening. Also, the importance of different countries is going to change relatively. So if you look at some of the countries which have very bright future, one is Vietnam, which is, having a very good exports, which is having trade arrangements, free trade agreement with multiple countries. It is part of ASEAN, it is part of RCEP. You look at India also has a huge potential because many countries are many companies thinking of second base outside China, and they're all thinking about India, and that's a possibility. USA, all said and done, is USA. Yeah, the sheer size of the economy, almost 18-19 trillion dollar economy, is very strong. The job, what is say, unemployment is reduced. Now there are companies looking for people and they're not getting people because the skill sets have changed. So in terms of US, the huge market where they're looking for hiring people, but of the right skill. And that right skill, if you don't have today, it's your time to invest in education, to reskill yourself and get into those areas. Europe, again, all said and done, the growths have been relatively less, but Europe has its own way. The quality of the life, it's about and some economies like Germany are still going very strong. Eastern Europe is going very strong. Some of the countries had debt issues, Portugal and others. But again, overall together, those 27 countries put together is moving ahead. Even Britain, with Brexit behind it, is again moving forward, trying to sign free trade agreements with India and other countries. So those are the trends, I would say, KK, in terms of some of the countries, in terms of some of the currencies, and this entire aspect about digital globalization. Yeah. So earlier, only the big companies like Tatas and Birlas could go out and do international business, or the General Electrics or the Apples of the world. But today, any small company in Dharavi or a small, Ludhiana can also go global by just listing on Alibaba or on Amazon. They don't have to do the logistics. So the world is becoming flatter for everyone. It is also for you and me. If you have a skill, you can give your skill working from home, connecting to the internet anywhere in the world. So it's a big opportunity. It's becoming a leveler. It's not just for the big companies, but even for small companies. So any other question? So KK has been pretty strong. Anybody else wants to come in? So let me take then some of the other questions put before me. Somebody asked about future of travel. Yeah. So again, travel is a very interesting aspect. And if you look at the COVID times, the passenger travel really shrank because the borders being closed, flights being closed. But the cargo movement has just skyrocketed. And many of the airline companies have converted their passenger airlines into cargo airlines because you want to send medicine, the vaccine, and so many other things, just in time. So in terms of travel, the cargo movement has just boomed, and it's no coincidence that suddenly, Tatas are wanting to buy Air India. Jet Airways is, reviving from, a death, and then Rakesh Jhunjhunwala is trying to form a new airline, Akasha. So all this, different people will not invest in an airline if they don't see the future. So people are again, being locked up for 2 years. They're traveling for tourism with a revenge tourism. But the corporate travel types, will take a hit because corporates have realized a lot of things can be done over Zoom. So why send out people for 20 hours flights to do a 2-hour meeting? So those will become lesser and lesser maybe. But the leisure travel, the cargo travel, those things will still keep booming. Chandan is asking, how do you get out of the chip shortage issue that has impacted almost all of the automotive industries globally? Yes, Chandan. So that's again a very, very interesting question, very topical. And we keep hearing about, this chip shortage. So there are 2-3 angles to this. One, in terms of, maybe the producers could not see the, huge surge coming. With lockdowns happening, everybody wanted to buy not 1 laptop, but 3 laptops for the home. So suddenly demand of electronic products have gone up. That's one. Also, the chip makers realize that what chips are required in automobile are much lesser value than to the electronic industry. They're prioritizing that. But a lot of companies like Samsung, these Taiwanese companies, they're all investing in a lot of chip manufacturing. So it's a supply demand issue. And within a few quarters, again, supply will meet demand and maybe also exceed. But again, here also the technologies are very, very tightly controlled. A lot of manufacturing was moving to China, but now the Western countries are not wanting to give this chip technology to China. So it has to happen somewhere else. India stands their opportunity. Even the Tata Group is talking about making chips, but still, it requires an ecosystem. And India today doesn't have the ecosystem for the chips, even the electric vehicles. So automobile is no longer an automobile, it's becoming more of an electronic product. So it requires more and more of chips. So hope that answers, Chandan, to some extent. KK is again back.
Very, very well answered. Thanks.
KK, one trend that is emerging is rich from Asia are now investing in the developed world, and the headquarters of global companies are moving to Asia. So yes, that is a trend. But another trend, I would say related, they say, decentralized centralization. So earlier, when we used to say a company, the company say, hey, my headquarters is New York or New Delhi. But today, there is no one headquarters. A company's R&D headquarters may be in Bangalore. The production headquarters may be in Taiwan. Marketing headquarters may be in the US. So there is this entire aspect about disaggregating the global value chain and locating various functions wherever they're best at. So that's a very interesting trend. And of course, Asia is booming and likely to boom because of the population, because of the younger population. And after Asia, Africa is the next. So maybe in 10 years' time, it will be Africa's time. But the companies would still be, majorly from US, Europe, but they would sell across the world. And, if some of you are getting educated in some of those Western countries and India, you get a huge chance to be managers, managing those international operations in different parts of the world. Kaushal has a question. How do you see the advent of blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies in the sectors of finance, global trade, and business in generation days to come? Thanks for the insight. Yes, Kaushal, blockchain is becoming more and more mainstream. The application, so cryptocurrency is just one of the applications of blockchain. But the authentication of that is also giving it a big that's not my actually domain area, but it is going up and up. Professor Milind, if you want to pitch in and talk about it, the blockchain is really not my area. Professor Milind, are you there? Anything else? Swapnil is asking something.
So we have a question from Anand. There is a heavy bullwhip effect across the supply chain.
Yeah. So what is the full question? So that's the only question.
Yeah, that's a question.
There is a heavy bullwhip effect across the supply chain. Yes, all this container shortage, what we are saying, the freight rates going up. It's not that suddenly the containers have become less. What has happened is, initial days of the coronavirus, China, closed, but other parts of the world were, working. Then China opened. So this, containers got stuck in some parts of the world, and and they're not getting back. And because of which, what you're saying, bullwhip effect, a lot of those, repercussions are happening. Then there is Swapnil saying something. With COVID regulations being reduced, companies are gradually getting rid of work from home culture. Do you feel that everything will get back to normal pre-COVID, or still there is a possibility of hybrid work? I think, still, jury is out. So there are advantages of working from home. Companies have realized there are cost savings. Companies had huge real estate in prime locations, travel time saved, productivity. Initially people thought workers will not work without supervision, but we all are working, and we're working even more maybe. But we are also missing the office and the physical. So it may not be 7 days a week people going to office. Maybe 2 or 3 days a week they go to office, rest they work from home at their own time. So somewhere in between things will graduate. And some of the US companies have already announced that they will not call back everybody back to office. A lot of my students in the US who were earlier working in San Francisco, they have now bought big houses in the outskirts because they have got a order that next 12 months, 18 months the company is not calling them back. Anand, I see your hand.
Yeah, there's been a lovely session. Thank you, sir. As has been traditionally in your lectures as well, you also explain not just about international business, but how geopolitics influence international business. So the question is in that regard. China as a country has Belt and Road initiatives, financing infrastructure projects, not just within China and the neighboring countries, but also somewhere in South America and in African countries. India being a country wherein the corporates take major decisions, what is it that managers and corporates, especially Indian corporates, can do to address this Chinese issue of Belt and, or an alternative to Belt and Road initiatives?
Sure. So there are, so the reality is China has pumped in trillions of dollars and already built a lot of roads and pipelines and ports. So that is a reality. So now the same roads and ports and, will be used by everybody, not just China. So that's a myth that if China is building, only China will benefit, but even other countries will benefit out of that. That is one dimension. Second dimension, India is already talking about a spice route, because India had historically ties with Zanzibar in Africa to Java, Sumatra near Indonesia, where we had the spice route. So with Japan, India is trying to sort of reactivate some sort of those trade routes. Recently, NATO has also come out and saying that we will counter Chinese Belt and Road initiative with our own investment. US is also taking direction. So it's actually good for humanity. The more the connectivity happens, whoever builds doesn't matter. Whether NATO builds or China builds, everybody will use it eventually, and that will connect the different companies in the world. But in the short term, as you're saying, working in a company, how do I do those projects? So I know a lot of Indian companies who are taking subcontracting of projects in Kazakhstan or in some other countries which are actually part of Belt and Road. So companies look at their profitability. So they don't look at so much about nationality and zone stuff. So one of the managers I heard, they said that when you work in a multinational, you keep your passport at home. When you come to the office, you are the global citizen, and you will take decisions based on the profit maximization in terms of whatever is good for your customers, your products. Where you're back at home, then you talk about your passport and your nationality. So as all young people, I would urge you to have that global mindset and work on those areas. Deepali, how are you doing with time? We can take few more questions, right?
So we have a question from
another.
Yeah.
What is your view on the escalating freight costs, and will we see any price softening?
So that's $1 million question, and I've been talking to industry, and what some of the companies are doing. I can talk about those. So if you take some sectors, so what has happened is the container freight rates have gone up, to a large extent. But some of the companies in the auto industry, so they have contracted with the roll-on, roll-off shipping companies. So where which are all car carrier ships, and with those companies they have long-term contracts, and those rates have actually not gone up. That is one aspect. Another aspect, a lot of MNCs have factories in many parts of the world, and they're optimizing their production also based on the freights. Then again, in some industries, the suppliers, manufacturers not able to pass on the freight rise to the end customer. But in some other industries, they're able to. because the freight rates are not just risen from India, but they have also risen from other parts of the world. So it's a mixed bag depending on the sector, depending on the country which is there. But the shipping companies are raking in the money, maybe for the short term. So there may be opportunity for some startups or entrepreneurs in India to start making some containers because there is a temporary shortage. We have enough steel to make that. Those are possibilities.
So we have a question from KK. How is this sustainability or GHG or GWP impacting international business?
Yes, sustainability, with climate change, with all the side effects what we're seeing across the world, it's, on the agenda of most corporates. And, there are companies like IKEA and some others who recently signed, some, carbon neutral shipping plans. Yeah. So they are talking about closer home, manufacturing, reshoring, also using, even in the shipping, not just using the polluting fuel, but also some other type of fuels. There are experiments going on in terms of hydrogen powered, maybe planes in the future. So there are a lot of things, work in progress, maybe in R&D stage, but some of those will happen. And sustainability is, right at the top of most MNCs. And if you are looking at, careers, so learning more about digitization, more about, some of the sustainability issues. So SPJMR that phase, pioneer in a lot of sustainability issues. And some of the partner schools where our GMP students go, they also have related courses. Anybody else? Abhishek, you want to say something?
Yeah, hi Debraj sir. This is Abhishek from PGPM 2018 batch. So just I wanted to add to what you are saying. See, I am working right now in HSBC, and we have a push from top management to work on sustainability, and it's on our top priority. So what we are doing currently is looking for companies who are sustainably more aware, give them ranking based on what kind of product they are producing or shipping or selling or buying. And if they have a high score on sustainability, then we will give them loan on lesser interest rate. So we are coming up with number of products just based on sustainability. So that's from my company perspective. But as Devraj sir just told, all the corporates, at least the top corporates, their priority is now sustainability. And there are a number of rankings which you will continue hearing for next few years.
Yeah, ESG, right? So they're talking about
ESG.
The stock market valuation of those companies are also going up. So some companies are really focusing on environment, but some are also talking about it, so that the valuation goes up. Yeah. So there are both types of companies.
So Devraj sir, my question is slightly different. I was talking about, I want to know about the trade routes and how it is going to change in future, or if it is going to change, like Strait of Malacca or Suez or Panama. There are a number of important trade routes which we know. Is it going to be as important in future, or are there new trade routes coming in future which we should have some eye on, like China trying to come through Pakistan and the Gwadar port? Is it sustainable? Are we more concerned than we should be? Or in short, Strait of Malacca, will it be as important as it is right now if China successfully does the Gwadar port and everything else?
So, so finally, economics will, dictate, which of the routes make sense. Because by geopolitics, you can force, some new ports or new stuff, but it has to be sustainable. I was in Sri Lanka a few years back, and in Sri Lanka, China has built a port and an airport, and those are white elephants. I was told no flight has taken up or come down to that airport. So countries can throw money and build an airport or a port where nobody wants to go. So that is one type of investment. And already China's debt to GDP is 300%. And if they're investing more in bankrupt countries like Pakistan, so their debt to GDP will go up. And you must have recently read about Everbright and the real estate sector. So China has its own set of troubles. So they cannot keep on, unendingly, fund such, ports and other things. That is one aspect. Second aspect is the technology aspect. So today we have, a distributed global value chain, or components made across the world and they are assembled. But tomorrow when we are 3D printing, then do we require those, parts across the world? So a lot of things would change. And also, we are not just talking about the trade routes of products, but it's also about the trade routes for the services, all the telecom connectivity, all the 5G race, 4G race and whatnot. So all said and done, India is one of the lowest, cost telecom service providers. Africa is, there, doing great in, so companies like Tata, the erstwhile VSNL, Tata Communication. So they are laying those, telecom cables across the world, and Tata has recently bought some company called Tejas. They're making something to 5G. So those are the, other, look at, don't just look at the products, but also look at the telecom connectivity, look at, 3D printing and technologies disrupting in a big way. That's another thing to look at.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you. So KK is on fire, huh? So he's, the KBC chal raha hai KK, to mere quiz le rahe. What is good, magazine, newspaper or website where we can read about and stay? So my favorite is The Economist, Financial Times, listen to, some podcasts, YouTube videos, So today information is overflowing. It's about, how do you assimilate and how do you sort of, and also talking to people. So now you can talk to people if you're friends across the world. And therein again, lies the benefit of studying, globally. Your friends from across the world. You can talk to people, from anywhere in the world to know what's happening. So anything else, I see, some of our current students also, if you want to talk anything about, your own experience at SPJIMR, we have Shikhar, Charisma. And
can I just say something before I hand it over to the students? I would like to thank Cherry for, organizing this, helping us out, and she had to hand over everything to Shikhar at the last minute because of some session which was extended. And thank you to Professor Puli, who's joined this session along with his colleagues. So it means a lot that you were here to support us. Thank you, Cherry, and we hope that there'll be a session which you'll be hosting, and they'll be there to see you moderate it. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining. Over to you, Shrikar.
So I also see Urvesh there, So he has joined from
Germany.
Germany?
Yes.
Urvesh? Urvesh?
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
How is everything in Germany?
Yes, it's pretty windy today. Since it's been 2 days, it's pretty windy and the fall is coming up. So let's see. Yeah, and just finished with exams. So probably we have 2 more days to chill out or have some fun with friends together. But from Monday onwards, the schedule is again becoming a little tight.
And whatever you learned at SPJIMR helping you in Germany, Urvesh?
Without any doubt, sir, because, especially in finance, since I'm studying finance over here, for me, it's been a great experience because, over here, we need to kind of tackle with other problems, as in documentation part and like household cooking and rest of the things which are necessity for. So I think at the same time, we can focus on academics because we have done a lot of things at SPJIMR, and these things requires us to just go through a couple of slides that are being taught over here. So it's pretty easy for us to grasp everything as soon as possible. And as per my experience so far, I must say that most of the times SPJIMRs teaches other students in academics, and they help us a lot. We help other students in our class a lot. Whenever exam comes, most of the students who are from India and not from India, we teach them a lot, irrespective of the subjects. And
wow, that is great, you know. So you're not only
Yeah.
sending students, but you're also sending teachers, man. So
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Raghav also, I see Raghav here. Raghav. He's also from alum, I think, from one of the earlier batches. So Charisma, Shrikar, anything you want to say?
Thank you for providing us valuable insights into international business. So we thoroughly liked the workshop. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So I think let's end on time.